Good morning. Thank you. I must admit, this is a little bit overwhelming for me. It's my first time here in Cooperstown, New York. My travel getting here was a little bit off, so I'm glad I made it safely. Um, First, I want to say this has been a lifelong project of mine since I started coaching baseball almost 20 years ago in the inner city in Tampa, Florida. That's where I'm from originally, Tampa, Florida. And what I come to find is that baseball is a sport that it's almost like a love-hate relationship for some people. Um, it's a beautiful game, we love it, but at the youth level, what I've come to find is that purportedly, they say that African Americans are no longer participating in the game. When we say participation, I define that by not necessarily only playing at the major league level, but also as a kid's game, at the youth level, in high school, also as far as attending games and going to watch Major League Baseball, college games, etc. So as I was going through graduate school, this question kept coming up. So I said, why not? We do something that I really love, which is to study baseball. Excuse me. So the purpose of my project was to examine the racism impacting a purported decline in African-American youth participation in baseball. The history of the Negro Leagues is something that I found that is very impactful in trying to eliminate these purported issues as far as African Americans purportedly not playing. What we come to find is that understanding our history would definitely give us a sense of pride, a sense of knowing that a game of exclusion has also become something that we were not necessarily allowed to play, but also gain multiple things from, including the civil rights movement. Therefore, an analysis of certain historical, cultural, social, environmental, and accessibility factors guided my project. It can still be argued that racism remains a catalyst within the sport's hesitance to fully accept Black culture, whether overt or covert, and has caused African Americans to choose other more inclusive sports for their youth to participate and consume. So how is it that racism is still a part of this game? Well, for example, once again, like I said, when I first started coaching this game, I was in the inner city in Tampa, Florida. It's a local Little League park. In Little League, there's no travel teams. There's no go get guys from 30 miles away. Don't go get pitcher only. It's just the neighborhood game, right? So what I came to find is that the kids that I was coaching, they were getting certain types of feedback, microaggressions, micro assaults from umpires and fans whenever we would travel to go play teams across town. So it also started to make me think, how is this? From a historical context, baseball has been a culture of exclusion. Everyone's here understands that the Negro Leagues was a game, a sport that was not necessarily included in American history until recently to get its full just due. The racialized other in sport. African Americans, Latin Americans have always been considered the racialized other for different various means. And of course, the gentleman's agreement. The gentleman's agreement that took place saying that there wouldn't be any Blacks that would play in baseball, Major League, etc. However, the Black body is something that has been abused, has been also exploited, and has been put in different positions within all sports, but mainly in baseball. When you think about it, think about when you start talking about stacking, for example. You have a kid who comes up, he's the greatest shortstop in his neighborhood. He gets to high school, he gets bused to the suburbs, and the first thing the coach wants to do is what? Oh, wow, you're so athletic. I have a guy that's much more smart than you are. He's a thinker, but you're so athletic. Don't you play on the football team? I think you also play on the basketball team as well. Instead of playing shortstop, let's put you in the what? In the outfield. So I commend Mookie Betts for finally coming back to the infield. It takes things like that, right? Give us an example. To give us another example that it can take place. Also, I use critical race theory as a theoretical framework to help guide this research. Cultural relevance. So again, coaching youth, what I come to find is that, coach, baseball is just not cool anymore. It's not cool. Who wants to go watch baseball? 2 hours, 4 hot dogs. You just spent $200 on 3 kids. And what do we get from this? So I say that baseball is less more culturally relevant than basketball and football, especially for our youth. How is this? The commercialization of this sport has not really stepped up to the plate as far as it's concerned. Can you count on both of your hands how many baseball players have been commercialized in a sense that are relevant to the urban youth or youth in general? Ellie De La Cruz, being that I live around the Cincinnati area, is on his way. However, the racialization through mediated sport, being that those sports that are put on television, for example, when the Little League World Series comes around every year, ESPN and ABC make a big push to put it on television. However, once again, that's a neighborhood game. It's not, you only get what you see as far as those that are able to have means to reach that level. And in order to get that crapshoot, as I call it, to hit the jackpot, to make it to the Little League World Series, it takes an extreme amount of push, effort, and also wealth. Assimilation versus acculturation. Baseball is a game I feel as though having to be assimilated into. When you think about all of the outside Americans as far as Latin, Cuban, Asian, the assimilation process, they say, is a lot faster. However, baseball needs to make a more effort, a push, in order for us to have an acculturation process, to embrace those cultures that are not necessarily as societal means. Racial identification. So, for example, when you look on the baseball field, again, like I say, that's a thing that to make it culturally relevant, we must be able to have people that look like us and also that have the swag like us. So, for example, today I put on my special Jackie Robinson's just for you. Even though I feel like I'm overdressed with this suit on, should have put on a jersey instead. But however, I'm trying to make sure that I assimilate into the process. This is also almost like an example of how this thing works. I think this is probably one of the most impactful reasons for the purported decline is that the socio-environmental constraints that are surrounding baseball. Social mobility. If you ask any 13 or 14-year-old right now, what are their goals as far as trying to make it in life? I want to be a professional player, football, basketball, baseball, etc. Or I want to go to college. But most impactfully, they want to be able to maintain or achieve a scholarship to pay for that. So the social mobility as far as being able to get that college scholarship, those coveted scholarships, and then have to break their heart and let them know that, well, you know, baseball is a game that you don't get 100% scholarship once you get there. What do you mean, coach? Well, you want to keep your grades up because baseball, if you, let's just say you are a first round draft pick, you have that type of talent, you may get 85%, you may get 100%, but there may be only 2 or 3 people on the team that actually get 100% covered as far as a scholarship. The wealth, power, and socioeconomic status also are constraints within this game. Baseball is extremely expensive to play. It's almost like a country club sport in 2024. One of my mentors is an ex-Major League Baseball scout. He tells me this over and over again. Baseball has been outpriced. We are in a situation now where in order to play a baseball game at any competitive level, not only do you need 9 or 10 bodies that are able to go out there and play, you still need 10 gloves, you need bats, a bucket of balls. All of these things add up, right? Not even including uniforms and travel fees. However, one of the main socio-environmental constraints is the Latin American talent, which equals global commodification. When you can sign youth at 15 and 16 years old, you have now reduced the price of what it costs for them to be able to pay for these prospects and his talent, which also eliminates some of the ones that are actually here that can elevate their game and status and matriculate through the sport. Access. Major League Baseball has made a push towards trying to have elite youth teams and facilities within the United States of America. They have also had, as you know, these academies in Latin America for several years now. As a matter of fact, each team has an academy in Latin America. Major League Baseball's Urban Youth Academy, which I was also a part of in Cincinnati and in Tampa as well. These are amazing facilities that also help youth get into pipeline programs, to be around scouts, to be in positions where they're able to actually get proper training that would actually cost them hundreds of dollars an hour. However, the effective programming and buy-in continues to be an issue. When you're programming for certain things, you may not necessarily take into consideration exactly what these youth actually need in order to be able to have some of the things I've talked about, the culture of relevance, the cool pose, to be able to embrace baseball as a game that is inclusive for them. Specialization costs. Trying to pay for a trainer in baseball, you can have a kid who has access to be able to have his parents or someone who's a sponsor for him to provide access for training and specialization. So now, instead of just playing multiple sports, being a kid, playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball, now once you get to a certain age, they want you to specialize in just one sport. So you have a 12-year-old who says, oh, guess what? I'm not going to be able to play this summer because I got to get Tommy John surgery. How is this? Because he's overextending himself in just one sport instead of maintaining the attitude that we had growing up, playing every sport, being a kid and involving yourself in multiple things. I'm sorry. So again, I consider all of these things and say that the access feature or component of this is that baseball has priced itself out. This is the main reason why people are deciding not to be a part of it. However, I asked this question, so what? Why should baseball still matter to African Americans? In my paper, I go through an analysis of actually these different things and scenarios, the historical aspect of it, with a main component with the Negro Leagues and just in general, from a historical standpoint, the culture of relevance, the social mobility, the culture of exclusion. So why should it still matter? Why? Because America told us it should matter. If you look back to the civil rights movement, baseball helped initiate that. Many things in our society have started from this game. So it should matter. However, how are we going to get there? How are we going to continue to make sure that this game is something that is culturally inclusive for everyone? There are some research limitations that I need to further explore. However, when it comes down to any major sport, anything in our society, we must analyze and try to figure out if these initiatives that are being put in place to try to create a sense of awareness for this game, to try to generate exposure, is this a bottom line for business? Is it just a public relations thing? Is it a photo op? What exactly is going on? However, research does indicate that Major League Baseball may be engaging in social responsibility initiatives that are impacting social mobility for some, but not for most of the African American communities in which they're situated. Again, in my research, I look back and try to find exactly where all of these academies are located in centrality as far as in these urban cities. And that's, once again, you will find them in some of the lower socioeconomic neighborhoods. But there are some limitations to that because now these same communities that are offering up their land for these academies to be built are not inclusive to the kids from those neighborhoods. I challenge everyone to look at that again as well. Concluding thoughts. So why does baseball still matter? Like I said, because America told us so. Through measures of exclusion akin to social Darwinism, yet has failed to fully embrace modes of competent acculturation. Now it's baseball's obligation to fully acculturate with contemporary youth culture, not as a modest corporate social responsibility, but more importantly, to embrace the aesthetic, style, essence, history, and racial identification that once made baseball the game that American history told its story. Thank you.
Like to take any questions that may be out there?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The attempts that have been made to get baseball into more economic areas, RBI, things like that. What do you think's been the barriers to that? Just other sports are more accessible?
I think it's multifaceted. Initially, what I found is that coaches are definitely one of the main things that need to be put in place to try to help that. A main barrier is that it doesn't cost much to go play on the basketball or football team because they have sponsorships, right? So if you have a local football organization or an AAU travel team, then the fee won't be as much for those kids that are wanted on those teams. Another barrier I've come to find with RBI programs is that everyone wants to win at some point, right? Once it starts to get to a competitive nature, then they start opening the doors up and they start to lose as far as its focus and mission of what it's a part of. I would be totally transparent with you. In 2021, I was a part of a team that finally won that RBI World Series. We had a very diverse team. However, a lot of those kids did not come from that same area, right? So there are barriers put in place because when a corporate organization is sponsoring a program from their community fund aspect of their team, at some point in time they do want some type of reward for doing so, and winning definitely is not despondent of that as well. You know, they want to win at some point. Yes, sir.
I couldn't help but notice that you mentioned CRT as part of your analysis, and I'd like to applaud you for that. Could you talk a little bit about how that fits into your thinking about the subject of why Black baseball matters?
Yes, sir. Like I said, just as I was studying different types of theoretical standpoints, it really hit home because of the micro assaults and the aggressions. Some of the things that are the racialized other component of it. I just feel as though there are subtle things that take place in a baseball game that the average person that's watching or that's not involved in it may not take it for what it is, right? So I'll give you an example. You have a team playing their heart out, and all of a sudden you start to get these looks from an umpire, right? Not normal looks. I'm talking about that one look. If anybody here has ever gotten that look, you know the look I'm talking about. You can be white, black, brown, purple, whatever, but you know this particular look. It could be a regional thing, it could be a race thing, it could be, but you know this look, right? So we start to see this. The more competitive baseball that we played, the different environments that we went into, we start to see that. Then when I started to realize that some of the kids that we had been training, once they got to a certain level, again, they were marginalized as far as their talent level. So that's another reason why I wanted to use that, incorporate it into that. We can talk after a little bit more because I don't have so much time, but definitely that's one of the main components of this. It's on you, man.
Growing up, when my boys were growing up a few years ago in our all-white suburb, you know, there were multiple teams from our suburb that came here to Cooperstown to play in the tournament that's going on right now and going on all throughout the summer. Was that ever talked about or a consideration or a possibility in teams that you were associated with?
That was not anything until I was I shouldn't even be putting their name out there, but we're all family today, so it doesn't matter. So until I joined the Cincinnati Reds organization, coaching with them, with their community fund, with their RBI program, because they have an academy, their funding was a little bit more, right? So until I was able to be around that, and I had been coaching for almost 12 years until that happened, I had never seen that before, right? So in Florida, the difference that I found between Florida and Ohio, to answer your question, was that if you're a kid or a youth that's playing sports, you're not just limited just playing for your high school team or your junior high, middle school team. You can also play on an AAU team. You can play on a little league team, senior little league team, and those teams travel. But if you have no exposure to that, if no one has ever even opened your mind up to doing so, then you will be blind to that. And when you're 12 years old, I was walking through the airport. I flew into Syracuse and drove here. I was walking through the airport and literally saw 12-year-olds carrying their glove with their fathers or whoever this male figure was. That's another thing it's in my paper. I'm not going to go there. But whoever this male figure who plays catch with them, right, was walking them through the airport, and doesn't have any luggage. He's just carrying his glove at 12 years old. So clearly, that's an exposure thing.
So when you talked about kids playing baseball and they don't perceive or there isn't much opportunity to get college scholarships, do you have any sense about the advent of name, image, and likeness funds, will that change anything in terms of participation?
So I heard something fascinating last week. But as they were talking about now how NCAA has given in to being able to actually pay student athletes, right? So I was just listening to this person talk, and the Ole Miss Rebels may be the first team to actually pay all of their baseball players. So people were like, why would they do that? Because they consider baseball that important to them and to their environment, to their people. So I think that the name, image, and likeness definitely will help to contribute to that. But until the cultural relevance component, until it's a sport where a person who is thinking about taking a scholarship to play baseball, that's coming from an environment that's not, as he said, coming up as 13 and 14, whose parents know people in the suburbs, who've had them on that team, that one or two that you see out there on that team has been accustomed to being around that. Those youth may go a different route still, even though with that in place, because who wants to play a game and you get to a certain point and you get marginalized, right? I mean, I was told from my mentor, who was, like I told you, was a scout. He said, if African Americans wanted to get the fastest pipeline to the major leagues, instead of putting those kids in the outfield, they should make them catchers. How many African American catchers are in Major League Baseball right now? Exactly, that's what I thought, right? Because that is a position of power on the field, and that's where it comes into play, I think, also.
Right here,
All right.
and then here.
Okay.
Has Major League Baseball been the main cause of this demise? Hey, the Chicago Cubs had it right. They played afternoon baseball. We don't have double hitters on Sundays anymore. We don't have Saturday afternoon ball games. Everything is at night at 7:30, when the kids are supposed to be going to bed. So what has Major League Baseball done to this, in your theory?
Man, I really want to. Okay, so I'm just.
We don't have that kind of time.
I'm just going to say this, right? I'm just going to say this. I'm going to leave it at this. I was sitting in a meeting with someone, and they told me they don't care about Friday, Saturday, or Sunday at the stadium, at the ballpark. All they care about is if the stadium is 1/3 full. If they have a 30,000 stadium, if it's 10,000 people in the stadium on a Wednesday afternoon, that's all they care about. So do they want to do something? They try. Maybe they're trying, but I still think it starts at the youth level. I mean, there's 30 owners. You can do it for your math on your own. There's 81 home games, and there's a lot of math that's in play with that.
Thank you for your synthesis. This is easily the best synthesis I've heard on the subject. Thank you for that. A follow-up on the critical race theory question. So what I've read about critical race theory just seems like analytical common sense.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's used now as a phrase that's treated like it's something subversive. Help us with the elevator speech that we give when we run into some nitwit who says something like that. What's our answer? Seriously.
If you've never experienced it, you'll never know. However, if I tell you I felt some kind of way, you should definitely understand and respect me, have empathy towards why I told you I felt that way.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Maybe two more questions if we have them. Right here.
Okay. You didn't speak to the subject of the showcases right now, which when you talk about the African-American involvement, say at the major league level, which is down quite a bit, what role does the dependence of the major leagues and even top colleges on these showcases, which cost so much money for the individual player to go to, what impact has that had on all of this?
There are some events, initiatives that Major League Baseball has done as far as showcases down in Florida at the Jackie Robinson complex. They actually bought Dodgertown and have been doing different types of showcases and events. I think they have a Hank Aaron initiative, invitational. There are different games and things that they're doing. But again, the showcases cost so much money. And some of them, you have to pretty much filter your way through the ones that are legit and the ones that are not. So, and some of those showcases also conflict with kids who also play football and basketball. So if you have a showcase in the middle of September or October when it's football season, it's kind of hard to get that same person to be able to attend both because of, again, specialization.
Right up top, this is our last question.
Okay, you had mentioned about the Little League World Series, and the gentleman up front had mentioned about taking his son to Cooperstown for a tournament. And a large part of the Cooperstown economy is driven by the Cooperstown Dreams Park and the Cooperstown All-Star Village. And it's my understanding that it costs roughly $3,000 a kid just to get here and put them in there with all other expenses. And these kids get, you know, their games are broadcast and so forth and so on. It's no mystery that, like, Mike Trout went to Cooperstown Dreams Park, Bryce Harper went to Cooperstown Dreams Park, Jacob deGrom went to Cooperstown Dreams Park, that it is such a competitive advantage that, you know, it's just, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Correct.
All right, this really is our last question right here. This guy right here.
So this might be another speech for you, but when a player does make it through the system, an African-American player excels in different sports, is about to go into major leagues. Why does somebody like, I'm thinking of Kyler Murray, who plays for the Arizona Cardinals. Why does somebody like him choose the NFL over Major League Baseball?
I wanted that myself also. However, I would tell you this: every student athlete that I've come across that was a quarterback or a very good point guard, all of them say the same thing, man. They say that it's a lot more cool to play those other sports than it is to play baseball. If you are a shortstop or if you are a pitcher, I think about people like, I hate to say his name, but Jameis Winston. I'm a Tampa Bay fan. You know? You have a guy who's throwing 90 miles an hour and he doesn't have to train all year long. It's a natural gift. Kyler Murray probably is one of the most natural athletes on the baseball field. If you ever got a chance to see him, pull up his YouTube in college and in high school, the guy is phenomenal. However, to be a quarterback in the National Football League at 5'2", I mean, it's got to be remarkable to consider doing that and to also get paid as much as he got. But like I tell kids all the time, if you go out there and sign a major league contract to play in the minor leagues, and you go out there tomorrow and tear this ligament in your thumb right here, guess what? They got to pay you every dime.
All right, we want to thank our brother Gordon for his presentation again.